Hey, Sick Chicks! You are listening to the Sick Chick Hour wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, it's Jen, and you're listening to the Sick Chick Hour Anniversary Edition. Let's get to it. Another year. I feel like I said that last year, but somehow those two words mean something completely different every time I say them. Another year since my transplant. Another year of being here. Another year of figuring out what it means to live after you've spent so much of your life simply trying to survive. And I think last year, when I talked about my life and everything that had brought me to that point, I was still looking at my story through the lens of everything I had survived. This year feels different because I'm not looking back at what I've survived. I'm looking at what I'm building. And honestly, I'm really proud of it. Not because everything is perfect, because it absolutely isn't, but because for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm actually building a life that looks like mine. So, I'm actually living my dreams. I have 2 jobs. I know. Whose dream is it to have 2 jobs? Well, it's mine. One of them is with BioNews, which I love and I am loving, so please check out our CF BioNews site. And the other is a project that I can't talk about yet. And there's something about being able to say that out loud that makes me emotional, because there are so many points in my life where I didn't know if I could ever have a career. I didn't know if my body would allow me to work. I didn't know what my future was going to look like. And now I'm sitting here talking about having 2 jobs. 2. And they're not just jobs that I'm doing so I can say I have a job. They're connected to things I actually care about. I'm doing advocacy work. I'm working for and with people with CF. I'm writing. I'm creating content. I'm telling stories. I'm using my voice. And I'm becoming the person I've always wanted to become. I wanted to be a writer. I want to be a content creator. But above all, I've always wanted to be an advocate. I wanted to take all the things I've experienced and somehow turn them into something that could help someone else feel less alone. And I'm doing it. I'm actually doing it. I don't think I let myself celebrate that enough. Sometimes when you've spent your entire life fighting to survive, you become so focused on the next problem that you forget to stop and look around. And if I stop for a second, I think I'd have to admit that I'm living parts of the dream I used to be afraid I'd never get to have. I've also been thinking a lot about purpose. And I don't think purpose is necessarily one giant thing that suddenly appears in your life. I think sometimes you build it. Piece by piece, conversation by conversation, story by story, and person by person. Advocacy has become a huge part of that. And something really important to me is that I don't want to just talk about people with CF. I want to work with people with CF. I want people with CF to have a voice in the conversations that affect them. Because we're the ones living this. We know what it feels like to sit in that hospital room. We know what it feels like to have our lives interrupted by appointments, procedures, medications, and complications. We know what it feels like to have our lives turned totally upside down on a whim. We know what it's like to have someone look at us and see a diagnosis before they see a person. And I want to use my voice to change that. But I also want to tell stories. That's why writing means so much to me. Because stories can do something statistics can't. A statistic can tell you how many people are affected by something, but a story can make you care about them. And maybe that's my purpose. Maybe it's taking everything I've been given, even the things I never asked for, and turning it into something meaningful. And then there are my kidneys. And this is the part where I have to be very, very honest. Because I don't want to sit here and give you this beautiful story about following your dreams and finding your purpose and rainbows and unicorns shooting out of your butt all the time. This isn't that story. At least not yet. My kidneys have been a huge issue this year. After 10 years of taking a beating by immunosuppressives and CF, I'm in kidney failure. And honestly, it's affected me more emotionally than I think I have been willing to admit. It's made me depressed. It's made me angry, really angry, because sometimes I look at my life and I think, how much more am I supposed to handle? I've already been through so much, fighting for my health, fighting for my life. I've had to learn how to live with things most people will never have to think about. And sometimes I just don't want another thing to fight. I don't want another complication. I don't want another medical problem. I don't want another diagnosis or an acronym. And I don't want a conversation about what could happen next. Sometimes I just want to be a person. I want to work my 2 jobs. I want to write. I want to make my TikTok videos, and I want to laugh with my friends. I want to make plans without having to calculate them around my health. And I think there's something important about admitting this. Because being grateful to be alive doesn't mean you are grateful for everything that happens to you. Those 2 things can exist at the same time. I am incredibly grateful for my 2 donors, my life, my care team, my mom, everyone in my life that loves and supports me. And I'm still incredibly angry that these were the cards I was dealt and that this is what my body has put me through. I can be hopeful and I can still be scared. I can be proud of how far I've come and still have days where I don't know how I'm going to keep going. Those feelings don't cancel each other out. They're a part of being human, and that's something I had to learn this year. Because when you are treated kind of like subhuman, in the medical world where you're just a diagnosis, you're another patient, you kind of forget I'm also a human. And the humans that aren't, sick, they're having these same emotions that I am. And that was kind of a big revelation to me. I'm being honest, but like I said before, this isn't all about rainbows shooting out of your butt. But sometimes a little rainbow can come out. A little unicorn can hop out. I know. There can be hope, and hope is in my friend. My friend is doing a kidney swap for me. And honestly, I don't know if there are big enough words for what that means to me. Because when someone says, I'll help you, that's one thing. But when someone is actually willing to put themselves forward and say, I'm willing to do so, I'm willing to put myself in some pain so that you have a chance, that is something completely different. There's not any thank yous I can say. There's no Broadway shows I can take you to. There's no many hugs, but what you have done has meant the world to me, and it's gotten me through this really hard time. So this is where it gets interesting. What is a kidney swap, if you're wondering? Let's say someone wants to donate a kidney to me. They're willing to do it. They've gone through the evaluation, but for whatever reason, we're not a compatible donor-recipient pair. Maybe our blood types don't work together. Maybe there are other immunological or medical compatibility issues. That doesn't necessarily mean the donation has to stop there. That's where a kidney paired exchange, commonly called a kidney swap, can come in. Basically, instead of my friend donating directly to me, my friend can donate a kidney to another person who is compatible with them. And the person that is compatible with them will have somebody who will donate a kidney to me. So nobody is necessarily giving their kidney directly to the person they originally intended to help. Instead, the donations are matched between different donor-recipient pairs and they swap. It's kind of incredible when you think about it. It reminds you that your life isn't just something you're fighting for by yourself. It shows that people love you, that people believe your life is worth fighting for. And sometimes when you're sick for a long time, I think you forget that. You become so used to being just the patient, just the person who needs help, just the person who has appointments, the person who needs another procedure, another medication, another treatment. And then someone comes along and reminds you, you are also someone's friend. You are also someone's person, someone they care enough about to show up for, and I don't take that for granted. I do know I am incredibly lucky to have people in my life who are willing to stand beside me through it. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned this year is that triumph doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Sometimes we think triumph means I am healthy, I am cured, everything worked out, the problem is over. But that's not what triumph looks like in real life. Sometimes triumph is getting up and going to work when you're exhausted. Sometimes it's pursuing the dream you thought illness took away from you. Sometimes it's writing the thing you've been afraid to write. Sometimes it's using your voice when it's easier to stay quiet. Sometimes it's having a terrible day and still believing tomorrow might be better. Sometimes triumph is simply refusing to let your circumstances become the only thing you are. And that's what I'm most proud of. I'm not just my transplant. I'm not just CF. I'm not just my kidneys. I'm not just the things that have happened to me. I'm a writer. I'm a content creator. I'm an advocate. I'm a friend. I'm a daughter. I'm a person with dreams, and I'm finally allowing myself to be all of these things. For so much of my life, survival was the goal. Make it through this hospitalization, make it to the next appointment, make it through the next procedure, make it to the next milestone. And then eventually you reach a point where you realize, okay, I survived. Now what? I think I'm finally answering that question. Now I live. Now I work, now I write, now I create, now I advocate, now I chase the things that I've always wanted, and now I make plans, and I have to cancel or reschedule, so what? Make those plans. Now I fall in love with pieces of my life that have nothing to do with being sick. And yes, sometimes my health still pulls me back into that world. Sometimes it forces me to stop and makes me angry and depressed. But it doesn't get to have every part of me. My illness gets a chapter. It doesn't get the whole book. So, another year since my transplant, jinx, jinx, jinx. And if you're listening to this and you're somewhere in your own fight, I don't want to tell you that everything happens for a reason. I don't know if that's true. I don't want to tell you that every struggle will make you stronger. Sometimes struggles just hurt. Sometimes they're unfair. Sometimes you're allowed to be angry. But I do want to tell you this. Don't let the things that happen to you convince you that they're all you are. You can be sick and still have dreams. You can be scared and still move forward. You can be angry and still be grateful. You can be struggling and be accomplishing incredible things, and you can spend years fighting to survive and eventually realize that you're allowed to start building a life too. That's where I am now. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still scared. I'm still angry. I'm still dealing with things I wish I didn't have to deal with. But I'm working 2 jobs. But I'm advocating. But I'm writing. But I'm creating. I'm following my dreams and I'm finding my purpose. And I'm here. I'm still here. And I will be here. And maybe that's the real triumph. Not that my life became easy, but that after everything, I decided my life was still worth building. I'm going to keep building it. One story, one dream, one day at a time. Thank you for spending another year with me, and thank you for listening to the Sick Chick Hour. See you next time.